Thank you, Leslie, for passing the glass to me. I'm particularly grateful for it on what is a lovely, warm, and sunny day here in London. Now, the stat that I wish people knew is perhaps not one that you would expect coming from a water professional, as it's focused on the size of the financial market. So, as of 2023, the amount of cash flowing through the economy in the form of debt, so government, company, and personal domestic loans, was 300 trillion US dollars. Let that sink in for a minute. 300 trillion US dollars, not billion and not million, 300 trillion. The majority of this debt is being accrued by governments and companies worldwide, and it's being used for infrastructure projects and to grow businesses in all their glorious and shapes and sizes. So you might ask yourself, why does this matter to us? Why should we care about this huge amount of money? Well, sadly, at the moment, we can state with a high degree of confidence that the majority of this money is being used and spent with little regard to the impacts that it may have on our rivers, lakes, aquifers, and streams. That means essentially that it's being used to build dams at the heads of free flowing rivers, to pump ever increasing amounts of groundwater, particularly non renewable groundwater, and to discharge huge amounts of pollutants into rivers and communities. You see, at the heart of this flow of money is an unspoken but vitally flawed assumption. The assumption that water will always be there whenever it's needed, and in the quality that it is needed. And of course, those of us in the water community know that this assumption, this situation, is sadly no longer true. But it doesn't always have to be this way, of course. Imagine if the banks issuing this debt saw water differently. Imagine if they could see that it was a finite and irreplaceable resource. Imagine if every single one of those $300 trillion were working to achieve our water goals instead of undermining them. Well, I have hope that we're moving closer to that reality, and indeed have dedicated my career to making this happen. And the reason that I have more hope at the moment than at any other time in my last 20 years of my career is that because recently a group of 120 central bankers, known as the Network for Greening the Financial System, or the NGFS for short, these are these institutions that are responsible for guiding banks in how they should be run. They have collectively come together and now working to understand how the destruction of freshwater resources and other critical natural resources affects the financial stability of banks worldwide. And of course, once they figure out that it does negatively, quite substantially, in fact, affect banks worldwide, they will be compelled to take action. And that action may be requiring all banks everywhere to measure, report, and manage the freshwater impacts associated with their lending activities. And you all know when you've done a test and the test expects you to perform in a certain way, you're much more likely to perform in that way so you get good grades. And that is exactly the type of push and nudge and behavioral change that type of change would elicit within the banks themselves. Also, although it doesn't always feel like it, there are really some really important reasons for optimism. And I really hope that we can all remember that, because at times it isn't easy to do so. So now I'd like to pass the glass over to Leslie Morris Iveson, who is single-handedly shifting the world of standards so that they too work in towards achieving our water goals. So over to you, Leslie.